All right, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
How we doing? Hello out there, if anybody's watching us. All right. Okay, so as I am very fond of saying at the beginning of these lessons are meant to self-destruct. They are meant for me to put a sign-up sheet up for buttons and tabs, and no one signs up because they know how their instruments operate backwards and forwards, which has not happened in 18 years, so I don't anticipate us stopping them anytime soon. You know, as always, I really don't have any sort of game plan in regards to how we're going to go through these or what I'm going to go over. I kind of leave it at your feet to come in with questions that you may have or concerns that you may have, and I always have an idea of things that I could go over in case we need to get the ball rolling. But aside from that, if there are any questions, we can jump right in. Mark, go ahead.
There's three buttons on here, and I'm always a little confused on the Yamaha as to what they do.
Okay. Confusion on buttons on the Yamaha. Okay.
On the Lowery, it's one button,
Okay.
and they've got three here, and it's you know, when you want to play the
Okay. All right.
the background along with the.
Okay. So Mark is confused about three buttons that are on the Clavinovas, one of which is on the Lowrys as well. And they are to the left of the screen here, to the left-hand side, over near where the style section would be. And that would be the same thing on the Lowrys as well, over on the left-hand side. Now, one button in that section, which he has a question on, is I'll start with the one that has the same name as the Lowrys, which is, it says StartStop. Now, I use that on the Yamahas the same way that I use it on the Lowery, which is I use it to stop a rhythm that I'm using. You probably do the same thing. So unless you are using an ending, which you might be, but unless you're using an ending, when I'm done playing with any sort of background, to stop it, I hit save. I hit the button that says stop. Okay, so now the rhythm stopped. If I want to start it again, I can start it with my left hand if I want to. And the Lowrys work the same exact way. You can start the rhythm with your left hand, and then I would stop it here. Why they put StartStop on it? I mean, you can start it there, but I find it a bit confusing when you start it with that button, because when you're starting it with that button, you're jumping into a pre-existing beat. Same thing on the Lowrys. If I turn on a Lowery and I say, oh, I want to play along with Broadway. So you hit this button that says Broadway, and then if I hit start, the beat's already going. And now I have to inject myself into a beat that's already going, which is not the easiest thing to do. Now, I can start it that way, but I don't think it's the most advantageous way to start. I'd much rather start it from the left hand. That way you can put your hands where they need to go, and you're not jumping into a beat and trying to figure out, well, what count am I on? And this allows you to get right on one. Okay. Now, one of the other two buttons that you have on the Yamaha does exactly that. So the Yamahas have a feature on them which are not on the Lowrys, and it's called Sync Start. Now, when you hit the one that says Sync Start, it allows you to start the beat from your chord. If the Sync Start is not on, I can't start the beat from my chord. So Sync Start, what it does is it synchronizes a starting point for you. So now with that on, you'll notice that the red light that says Start Stop is flashing on and off. It's basically saying, I'm on beat one, I'm waiting to start, you tell me when to go, and I'm ready to go. So it's waiting for me, and now when I play my chord, chord automatically begins. Or it begins the rhythm, in other words. The chord starts the rhythm. So in order for my clavinova to act like my Lowery, whenever I'm going to start, I have to hit that button that says sync start. So it just pauses the beat, just like the Lowery does. The Lowery does it automatically. Yamaha gives you the option to disable it. So I pause the beat, and I can play as many pickup notes as I want. And then when I play my chord,
Now,
the chord starts.
What happens if you hit a chord again now? Will it start up again?
Well, I just paused it again with sync start. It's almost like a pause button as well. So I hit it, I play the chord, and I can stop it. I can stop it by hitting the stop button, or I can essentially pause it by hitting sync start again. So if I do that, again, here's my... Now it's paused, I play another chord. So the chords are continually changing, just like they are over there. Now, the other button is a really interesting one, sync stop. Now, sync stop is a really cool button because what it does is how do I want to explain it? It stops the rhythm when you take your fingers off of the left hand. So if you're in the middle of the song and you want to just play some notes in the right hand, or let's say that I've had a lot of students that feel like they get lost in the middle of the song, they lose their timing. Well, what this allows you to do, sync stop, is I play a chord, and then as soon as I let my fingers off the keys, the beat stops. I play it again, the beat starts back up. But I need to hold the chords down in order for the beat to continue. Where if I'm using just sync start, the chord holds even though your fingers are not holding the keys. Okay? Sync stop only plays chords while your fingers are there. And I think the advantage, again, is that if you feel like your timing is faltering, you just let your left hand up, and it's going to revert right back to beat 1. And then when you play your chord again, it's on 1. Another advantage to sync stop is that I'll tell you historically the way that I've used it with students is students that are overly concerned that their left hand is drifting. You know, one thing that is a benefit with the Lowrys, but it can also be a detriment in a way, is that when you play your chords, you only need to play the chord at the split second that it needs to be heard, when the chord box is above whatever notes there are. And then you technically don't have to keep your hand there until the next chord comes up. Now, there's a benefit to that, obviously, is that you don't have to hold the chord down. The detriment is you don't have to hold the chord down. And therefore, your left hand can drift without you, what's the saying, idle hands or the devil's playground or something like that. So if your left hand isn't doing something, there's the possibility that it can move to a place where you don't want it to go, and then all of a sudden you go to play your left hand again and it's in the wrong spot. Well, what sync stop forces you to do is to keep your hand in one spot, because as soon as you lift your left hand up, the chord stops. So it's a way to drive home that I need to keep my left hand put. And again, that's one of the reasons that I've suggested for students that have struggled with that. I've put that on. And I said, okay, well, you lift your left hand up, you're gonna hear it, or you're not gonna hear it because it's gonna be gone.
Does it finish the measure?
What's that?
Does it finish the measure?
It does not. As soon as you lift your left hand up, doesn't matter how long you hold it down for. But if you hold it, it'll play for as long as you hold it for.
So you can't switch to another chord. You're going to get a stop in there between the two.
Matters what chord you switch to. Because if you switch to a chord that shares at least one existing note with the chord you're playing, and you remain to hold that one note down and then move the other, let's say 2 fingers, then it won't. But yeah, if you pick your whole hand up, but if I do this, so I'm keeping one finger down and then moving the other 2. And as long as I'm making contact with one key and holding it or depressing at least one key, it'll continue to play. But as soon as I lift my left hand up, that's gone. That make sense?
Yeah, it's just interesting design.
Yeah, I mean, I think that their idea in
It's not clear in the book always.
It never is. No, the books are not the clearest. Books are not the clearest things in the world. Their idea, if I can put my head into or put myself into the mind frame of the designers, was probably they wanted to give you an easy way to turn the rhythm off, so that you don't have to reach up to hit a button to turn the rhythm off. You just lift your left hand up and it's gone. It also allows you to get directly back to beat 1. So if, again, you're in the middle of the song and you feel like your timing is faltered and you say, I want to start in the next measure, you just lift your chord up, you play your chord, and guess where you are? You're on 1.
It resets the beat.
It resets, it brings it right back to 1. So you don't have to hit stop. So you don't have to take your fingers off the keys. You just lift your left hand up. When you play your next chord, it's on 1. Every single time. So it allows you to kind of get back into the rhythm that's already playing, whereas sync start allows you to not start the rhythm until you want it to begin. So I mean, there's benefits to both, which is why you can utilize them both simultaneously. Right now, sync start is saying, okay, well, I'm waiting for you, and then sync stop is saying, as soon as you lift your left hand up, the rhythm's gone. Okay, and then obviously start stop is just like the one on the Lowery. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. A question that came up during a private lesson this week, and I thought I spent enough time on it where I actually put it into our micro lesson, which will be online later on today, is their question was in regards to the journey or fanfare, one of the two. And it was about bank storage. Now, bank storage is something that is on both the fanfare and the journey. It's not on an instrument, at least to the degree that it is on these, that has a thumb drive or a floppy disk. So what bank storage basically is it's an internal thumb drive, if you will. And just to give you a little bit of a brief description of what bank storage is, and you can watch the video, it's about 20 minutes long, and that'll explain it a little bit further. But basically what bank storage gives you the opportunity to do is, let's say that I put things on these numbers, these 8 buttons, and I fill them up. And I say, I want to put more stuff on these numbers, but if I do, then I'm going to lose what's on those numbers now. Well, starting on the fanfare and extending to the journey, you have a section that they call bank storage, which means that if you fill all 8 of these up, you can save those 8 internally, name them in the screen, and then put another 8 brand new sounds on those numbers. And whenever you want to bring the old ones back, you just go back into the bank, you find the name of the song or the arrangement, whatever it was, that you had saved previously, and you can pull them back out. So you're not limited to just only saving 8 spots. You can save 8, you can save another 8, you can save another 8, and then you can pull them back out whenever you'd like. So for example, right here on these numbers, just to give you an example, I have this sound in the left hand. Added the drums, added the bass. So obviously I had done some memorizing on these numbers. Now, let's say that I said, oh gosh, 2 weeks ago we did the song, I'll pick one I know that's in here, the Can Can. And I remember I saved some stuff for that song, but that was weeks ago. They're not on here right now, okay? So what you do is you go into the bank storage, you go to load, you hit select, you find Can Can, I hit select, and now on these numbers are completely different things. Now I can go back and pull the other, as long as I save the other stuff, which I did, I can go back and pull that back out. I just look for the name of it. I think that was the arrangement to Hey Jude that I did. Now, that is not available on the Inspire. It's not available on the Rialto. It's available if you use your thumb drive, but you can't do that without the thumb drive in. Now, this doesn't have the thumb drive, and I can do it internally. So their question was, are there any instruments that do both, that you can save as much memory, if you will, as I can on the journey of the fanfare, but also save externally? So figure an external and an internal hard drive. And the answer is, from Lowery's perspective, no. All of the Yamahas do that. The Yamahas you can save either externally or internally. And there's a very important reason why they gave the Yamahas the capability of doing that. And that's because when you purchase one of these things and you take it out of the box, now let me preface this by either you can take it out of the box or I can take it out of the box, okay? If I take it out of the box, because again, you can purchase these things at a variety of different places. You can buy them online. If you purchase one of these from, I don't want to say, I'm not naming any names particularly because I'm on camera. There are a lot of places where you purchase these and they are a shell of what they are. They look the same. They have the same buttons on them. But what happens when I unbox one of these, and it's just not me, I'm not the only one that does this, but Yamaha has given us access to all of their updates. And so the first thing that I do is I make sure that you have the latest update on the instrument that you got. And it's going to sound completely different if you unbox it yourself and plug it in. It's not going to have nearly, this has, I want to say, and I might get in trouble because I'm on camera, so if I'm wrong about this, anybody that's watching, certainly let me know. But in unboxing one of these and looking at it, it seemed to me to have about a third of the capabilities of what this does now. And one of the reasons that I think that that's great is because it does compel people to purchase instruments from a music store, you know, and we get this because we're in the good graces of Yamaha. You know, they don't have to provide everybody with this material, and they don't, you know, but I have all of the updates, and if a new one comes out, we get those. And the reason I say all of that to say this, that would not be possible if I could only save externally on here. So, you know, you look and you say, oh, there's a thumb drive there. Well, yeah, there is. If I take the thumb drive off, I can still save onto this instrument internally. And the reason that I'm able to do that is because basically they're updatable. You know, it makes sense because let's say one of these is in a warehouse for 6 months or a year. You know, just because you bought it new doesn't mean it was made 2 days ago. Well, in that 6 months or a year, they might have come out with an update. You know, I've had some experiences looking at these where I was trying to find rhythms that weren't there. I unboxed one. I said, well, mine has those rhythms. And, oh, okay, I did the update. So then I went in, I updated, and guess what? Those rhythms were there in the update. And so that's, you know, going over, you know, a lot of people ask, well, you have the thumb drive, and then you have instruments that have just the internal. Does anything have both? Lowery did not do that. Lowery is one or the other. And they didn't have many that have an internal memory as big as these instruments. That's pretty much as big as they ever made an internal memory. I know that a lot of instruments had Memorize on them, but you were limited to what you could put on these numbers, and that was it. Okay, they have a recorder on them, but you could only record so much. Okay, as far as the thumb drive, it's unlimited in terms of how much you can save and record, but you have to have it in there in order to do it. If I go over to an instrument that doesn't have that has a thumb drive and I don't have it in there and I try to hit record, it's not going to do anything. It's going to tell me to put the thumb drive in. Okay, Yamaha, on the other hand, as I said, did both. The interest being that they could be continually updated as updates came out. So no matter when the instrument was made, you know, whether it was made, again, they made one of these 2 weeks ago, they made one a year ago. You put the update in there and you update the instrument. And they can be continually updated. So if they come up with a newer update and I'm aware of it, you know, I can update it at the house. I mean, it takes all of about 10 minutes to update it. It's not that big of a process to do, but I think it's a very important one, because you know you always have the most updated stuff. It's really more along the lines of how if you have an iPhone, every now and again, I know the iPhones and the iPads, they say, oh, there's an update. Well, you just hit the little button and it updates it. That's kind of the same general idea. Yes, sir.
If anybody else has a question, go ahead. My question revolves around MIDI.
Yeah.
Which the Yamaha supported, but not well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Lowery supported MIDI. Some of them did, but I didn't do much with it.
Right.
But the Yamaha does a lot with MIDI.
Mm-hmm.
But suppose you download a song,
Right.
and you've got you know, some kind of you know, pan flute or something.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't on the Yamaha that you download the MIDI to.
Right.
You get the song on the internet, you put it on there.
Right.
What's it going to do with that pan flute? What's it going to do?
So if you download something online in MIDI form, you try to play it on the instrument,
Yeah,
and it's utilizing a sound that you don't have.
right.
I'm going to give a guess because I have not personally run into that. I don't want to give you the wrong information, but it would be my assumption that it's going to choose something, and hopefully it's something close to that pan flute. It's very unlikely that you're going to find a sound that you don't have. I mean, these have a lot of stuff on them. I know the Yamahas have a lot, so it's unlikely that if they're using a sound, a lot of the MIDIs that you record were done on these. So it's I'm sure it's possible.
I do know with MIDI that they're in classes of sound.
Right.
So they come in like in their pianos,
Right.
like the Buttons would say, they're organs, they're
Right.
pianos, they're woodwinds, and they do it that way in MIDI too.
Right. And you can do your you probably know this, but you can record yourself in MIDI or non as well, which is pretty cool. Whereas if you record yourself in an MP3, well then you pop it out. You can put it in your computer if you want. You can you play it in your car. A lot of people have the little thumb drive thing in your car. So I mean, there's a reason why MIDI's a little bit more stable, I think, to go back and forth with different types of equipment and different brands. But yeah, it's pretty cool to be able to do recordings and things in other avenues. The Lowerys can do that to an extent as well, starting on the Inspire, and that's why that was the first instrument that you could play recordings of via a thumb drive, play along with them. You know, I have, for example, a recording, I think, of San Antonio Rose, where Rosemary Clooney, I think, sang that song, I believe.
Could have
Been Patsy Cline, maybe Patsy Cline, I don't know. Somebody will tell me, I'm sure, that's watching us.
Alcohol.
Oh, you know. So that was the first instrument that I had anyhow, where I could throw that song and an MP3 file, which is what you'd have, you know, it's just a recording. You can put it on a thumb drive, pop it in, and play right along with that recording. So yeah, I mean, it's a pretty cool thing. Any other questions? Go ahead.
John, seeing that we're just staying with the Yamaha for a minute,
Mhm.
on the updates, they will supply you with a stick then, right? With the updates on the stick, or do you have to put
So
it-
I have all of my updates on a stick right now, yeah. And that's the first thing that I check when an instrument, that I take out of the box. Is does this have the most updated operating system on it, essentially? And that's why you've probably never noticed this. And my microphone is hooked up to this right now, so I'm not going to turn it off. But if I turn this off and turn it back on, when the home screen comes up, where it was before the home screen, the title screen, where it says Yamaha Clavinova and it tells you the name of the model, it says version 7.3 or 5 or something, whatever the case may be, which, I'm going to assume that they didn't start with 7. I mean, they might have. It could have been, this is the 700 series, so maybe it started 7.0. Well, they're at least up to, I think this says 3. It could say 3 or 4. I think it's 3, though. So figure that they've at least had 3 updates since the initial. But yeah, a lot of people don't know that. They'll purchase an instrument and then they'll get it shipped to their house, and you unbox it, and I mean they're not an incredibly difficult thing to put together. And you can probably do it. They're a little heavy, but as long as you can get the legs on underneath, and you don't have it fall forward or on its side or anything like that, you can plug it in and it's gonna turn on and you're gonna get sounds out of it. But unless it's got those updates, it's the same instrument, which is something that's been alien to me, because whenever questions regarding Lowery would come up and someone would say, well, my instrument doesn't do that. And I said, well, yeah, it does, because you have the same one as I have. They all work the same. Well, now I have to be a little bit careful with that, because if someone says to me, well, I have a 709 or I have a 701 or a 705, and my instrument doesn't have that sound or doesn't have that rhythm or whatever the case may be, that feature, I can't just simply say, well, yes, it does, because we have the same one, because I have to look back and say, well, what operating system are you using? What version of software is in your instrument? Because you might not have that stuff. And it's a matter of making sure you get it. Other questions?
Okay,
Go ahead.
always have a question.
Yeah.
One of my questions, you knocked the wind out of my sail on one of the questions this week on Tuesday,
Okay.
because I knew that that you used the pedal to
Mhm.
put on and different sounds.
Yep.
And of course, when I'm playing, I like to use the fake button. I like to use the glide, the slide, and also the thing on the top.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think, well, it would be kind of fun too if I could put some kind of an animal in somewhere.
Right.
But yet I've used up most of what I had.
Okay.
And I don't want to be hitting another button if
Right.
I have to keep doing that.
Right.
So my question was, well, can you put the sound on the Lowery
Mhm.
like you can on the Yamaha? And you said, well, private lesson. All right. So I swore and then went home mumbling and grumbling. No, you didn't show us anything. But anyways, I started. One thing that you inspired in us that we cannot break the organ.
Correct.
I mean, to try, experiment, what have you. So anyways, I got on the scroll. And I came down and I said, foot pedal, and then the natural and the black, and I said,
Okay.
good. So then I pushed it, and then I found by the way, it is the finger snap.
Mhm.
I found that
Yep.
because I discovered that there is a sound just for sound and animals and everything,
Mhm.
besides just a regular sound.
Right.
So anyways, I put the cat snap on.
Okay.
And it was working. I felt real proud of myself, patted myself on the back.
Okay.
All right, so now my problem with that.
Here comes the
was-
question.
Here comes
Okay.
the question. It has to do with volume,
Right.
because
You can barely hear it.
I set up the setup and so forth.
I know where this is going.
All right, so
I know where this
now
is going.
I'm playing along and I hit the thing and
Mhm.
I don't hear anything.
Right.
So I said, okay, I know what I'll do is, and I had the pedal all the way down.
Mhm.
So I said, well, I guess what I'm going to do, I'll just turn up the volume. So I turned up the volume. That was a mistake because Jan came running in. What are you doing? And it, shook. I think it broke some of her crystal.
All right,
So,
let me try to answer your question before you even asked it. And if I don't answer it appropriately or adequately, then I'll let you finish because I think I know where this is going.
right.
Okay. So your question is very particular to a song that we did this week, but it doesn't necessarily need to be. In other words, let me condense that paragraph down to a couple questions for everybody in TV land there that probably didn't even hear what you said. So your question is in regards to, in your case, you putting a sound effect on your pedal and you not hearing it. Okay? But that could be, it doesn't have to be that. It could have been anything. It could have been the right hand. You could have picked a delicate sound on your keys, and once the rhythm started going, you didn't hear that sound.
No.
Okay, so let's just pretend that I'm trying to pick something that's more applicable to everybody. Yours is very specific to you, but I'm just trying to tackle it from a more all-encompassing perspective. Okay, so the goal is, how do I get something that I can't hear to sound louder? And your first inclination is everybody's first inclination, which is I turn the volume up. Now, the problem with turning the volume up either with your foot or with the master volume is, yeah, you're going to turn the volume of the thing that you want to be higher, but you're going to turn everything else up as well. And so it's all moving by a degree. So now you hear everything else louder and you still don't hear the sound that you were using. So I guess the first thing you need to see is the thing that I'm using able to manipulate the volume on its own? In other words, is there a volume just for that thing? Okay, so that would be step number one, is can I isolate just the volume for this? Because if I bring my master volume up, again, it's everything is up. If I bring my foot up, same thing. So I want to keep some stuff where it is and try to bring the stuff that I can't hear up. Okay? Now, on the panel, it's pretty self-explanatory in a way. You have a section over on your right-hand side, and I'll speak to your instrument here for just a second, or one that's close to it. These are volumes, or it says level. Okay, so let's just say for the sake of temporarily our conversation that you were talking, I know you weren't, but let's say you were talking about a sound on the upper keyboard and you couldn't hear it. So the first step would be, let me isolate that sound and bring that all the way up. Now, if that doesn't work, or in your case, because you're trying to increase the volume of a sound effect sound, what you need to do instead is you need to turn the volume of everything else down. And by bringing everything else down and leaving the thing that you want at one volume level, it's going to appear as if that sound is now higher. Okay, let me give you an example. So I, this week, did sit down and set up this song for Adam's Family. Okay? Now, if I pull this up, now tell me if this sounds a little bit louder on here than it might at home for you. So if this is my beat here. Okay. Now usually it's when the beat comes in that you can't hear the sound effects. Because, I mean, when the beat's not on, you can hear it. Okay. Now, let me put the beat on. It's not going to be as loud, but it's a lot louder than it was probably at home. I brought my bass down, I brought my style down, I brought my lower keyboard down, I brought my drums down. Now let me bring those back up. And now tell me if you hear the finger snaps. I mean, they're still there, but listen to the difference. I'll grant you this, your finger snaps don't sound anywhere near as accurate as these. Those sound a heck of a lot better, but that's the finger snap that you have. So, I mean, I don't know if it's a matter of them not sounding loud or them not sounding as good. You know, but that's what I did to make that sound a little bit louder, because otherwise I didn't have any other way to do it. I didn't have a way to increase that aside from bringing everything else down, at least that easily.
John, what I did, then I stopped it.
Yeah.
I stopped it, and then I put when I stopped it, so I stopped all the sound, then I hit the pedal, and I got the click, and I
Right.
got it at a pretty good, where you could.
Well, because you stopped everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
I stopped everything.
So this allows you not to have to stop everything.
Does dynamic keying affect the pedals?
No.
Dynamic keying only affects the keyboards. Oh, so.
So that's
if you
called
use
dynamic keying and non-dynamic pedals.
If you use dynamic keying and you
Right.
played softer, then when you hit the click.
Doesn't have anything to do with the background now.
No, but you could turn the background down too, so then the clicks would be much more prominent.
Yeah, I mean, you could do that. I mean, I did. I turned the background down, but the dynamic keying, it usually, when someone says that they can't hear something like a sound effect, it doesn't have anything to do with the right hand.
Yeah.
Because particularly in this song, I mean, this is very song specific. You're not playing the right hand during the clicks.
Right.
The only thing that's playing during the clicks is the background.
But I mean, the general balance, if you use the dynamic keying and then you turn the volume up, your melody would be softer and your background.
But you're not playing your melody during those sections.
not
You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, it'd be one thing if you were playing the melody. I completely agree with you. Play the keys lighter, and it's going to sound lighter. But Yamaha is, as compared to Lowery, anyways, the only instrument where the harder you play your left hand, the louder the background can get. And I don't know if you've noticed that or not, but if you give that left hand a little bit more of a push, your background actually gets louder. Lowery's don't do that.
The dynamic keying is better on the Yamahas than on the Lowery.
It's going to, because you have a more traditionally weighted key.
Yeah.
You know, so they've what they're trying to do on the Lowery via the dynamic keying is make it act like these do, with the amount of pressure. But it's very difficult to, without a weight to the key, it's very difficult to structure it. You know, to set it such that it's acting accurately. It's almost like hard or soft. There aren't a lot of degrees in the middle. Whereas with the weight to it, I mean, when they did their recordings of, they'll take the piano example. So on all of these Yamahas, the default piano is one that they call the CFX Grand, which is their top of the line grand piano. It's like it's almost 200 grand, I think. Now what they did was they recorded that instrument in a soundproof studio, and they took every single key and they had it played at virtually every sort of pressure. So they hit it really hard, then they a tenth less, and then a tenth less, all the way to nothing essentially. And that's why you'll notice on the Yamahas that you have something which is remarkable. Maybe I've shown you this before, where you have something called, again, I don't want to misquote this, but off the top of my head, if I remember from the training that I went to, they called it, I think, sympathetic harmony, and that's not available on anything other than these. Basically, what sympathetic harmony is, and maybe I've given you this illustration before, is if you hold keys down. So I'm going to hold these two down. What I've just done is, by holding them down, I've released the keys so that it's free to vibrate. Because that's basically how a piano is designed. The keys are held, or the strings rather, are held so they can't vibrate until you hit the key. When you hit the key, that one string or set of strings, if it's the higher notes, sometimes they have more than one string, those strings are left free to vibrate. The hammer hits them. They vibrate for as long as they do until they stop vibrating, unless you take your finger off the key. When you take your finger off the key, there's a piece of felt which grabs the string and stops it from vibrating. Okay? Now, if I hold keys down, so I'm going to hold these down. If I hit them, you're going to hear them. If this was on, you'd hear them. So when I hit keys and hold them, you're going to hear those notes. Come on. Let's try. There we go. But as soon as I let it go, you notice the sound it doesn't stop immediately, but it stops pretty darn close. Okay? Now, if I hold these down, what I've done is I've just released the strings. so they're free to move. Now, if I play notes that are sympathetically harmonized with these keys, meaning that, I'll give you a layman's example. They're in the same, let's say they're in the same scale, okay? So I'm going to hold these notes down. I'm going to play some notes that are in the same scale. Now, I want you to listen. You're not going to, certainly not going to hear this on the video, but I don't think so anyhow. You're going to hear these notes ring out, even though I didn't play them. I'm going to hold them down. I'm going to let the string go. Now watch what happens. Did you hear that? Okay. Actually, that was pretty loud, so they might have heard that. Let me try that again. No, I could have done it the same way in the other direction. So let me hold some keys up here, a little bit higher. Again, I release the key so that they're free to vibrate. Not quite as noticeable with the higher end, but it's there. That's how a real piano works.
How slowly do you have to push those keys down to not have them play?
As slow as you can, because I mean, if you hit it even just slightly, it's gonna play. So you have to get to the point of, or you can hit it and just let it fade, and then just don't let it go, and it'll do the same thing. But that's how a regular piano works. You know, there's sympathetic harmony, okay, and you know, this is doing the same. It's doing the same thing. That would be impossible. I say all of that to say this. That would be impossible to do with a non-weighted key, at least to that degree. And there are a lot of companies that make digital pianos where their pianos don't do that. It's one of the reasons that I find that most piano players that are coming from a traditional piano, if they have some experience, they're going to notice things like that. An amateur might not, but somebody that plays is going to notice that. They're going to notice the feel of the wooden keys, which a lot of amateurs wouldn't notice. They're going to feel the graduated weight of the keys, which is the keys down here are slightly heavier to the push than the keys up there. You know, it's a graduated weight. They get a little bit lighter. I mean, it's not like twice as, or 3 or 4 times as heavy down here, but they're heavier. And that's how a regular piano is. It's a much lighter touch up top. Next question. Go ahead.
Volume, again.
Mm-hmm.
When we were doing the Skater's Waltz,
Yes.
and I turned off the drum,
Okay.
but I could still hear it.
Okay. What rhythm did you use?
The B&E waltz.
Viennese waltz?
Yeah.
And you turn the drums off and you can still hear them.
On the left hand side, where the drums are, there's the button for the drum off and on,
Okay.
and I turned the drums off, and I could still hear the drums.
Okay.
Maybe they're in the office.
So-
All right. Here's the Viennese waltz. Okay. So if I turn the drums down, you're going to tell me that I'm still going to hear the drums. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen when I turn this down. So you're saying when you turn the drums all the way down to 0, you still heard drums.
Well, also on the left-hand side, there's drums off and on too. It doesn't show up on the screen, but somewhere.
Show me where. Show me where you have drum only.
There we go.
Okay, so that does the opposite of what you're trying to have it do. Drums only means all you'll hear is drums. That doesn't turn the drums off.
Oh.
So if I do that, so let's bring the drums back in. Okay? Now all it is drums. What that button does is it isolates it so all you hear is drums. It doesn't get rid of the drums. The only way you can get rid of the drums, well, I mean, you can do a smash chord, obviously, but just bring your drum volume down. You bring this down, turn the drums only off here for a second. There's no drums in there. And you can prove it by doing this. Now only the drums are playing. Well, there aren't any drums, so nothing's playing.
So we
What
can't
about
ring
the other
over all.
button out?
So that's completely different. That is drum variation. That means that is the pattern in which the drummer is playing. You can change that. So for example, this happens a lot in music, but the easiest way to do it, give you an illustration, is to choose a beat, do drum only. So here's a, okay, so that's just the drummer, all right? Now when I hit drum variation, that drummer's gonna change their pattern. So it's if you want to think of it this way, the drum variation is like an alter style for the drums. So you got alter style, which changes your background. Okay, basically doubles the style options that you can play along with. Quick quiz, Clavinova owners. What's your alter style called? And how many of them do you have?
There's the main, and then there's, I've forgotten whether it's 8 variations or 4 variations.
So you have 4 variations, very good. So if you come over here, you have A, B, C, and D, and those are your alter styles.
Yeah.
So you figure if you have, so your instrument, hello there for just a second. If you have 310 styles on your instrument, you can play all 310 of those styles 4 ways. So any one of those any one of those styles that you have available to you, you can go through A, B, C, and D, and it will make them all sound differently. That's basically what the alter style is on the Yamahas. You have 4 of them. Yes, sir.
You could also, I was thinking that when you're saying that, one way to use that the extra style there, or the variation,
Yeah.
would be as almost like a fill-in.
Yeah, you can use it as a fill.
Yeah, they would
Yeah.
play differently and then go back. And
Absolutely.
Then continue on,
Yeah, and they give you the option via the Yamaha with the A, B, C, and D. Those
Yeah.
what did I just call them? I just lost train of thought here.
Alter.
Oh, they're variations, which is exactly, or the alter style. It happens in real music. You know, bands don't always play the same way all the time. And so you can take any beat. I mean, we'll leave this beat on because it's here. I could start a rhythm out like this. And then on the second page,
I read somewhere they get more complex as you go along.
they do. So not only do the styles get more complex as they go along, but the intros and endings get more complex as they go along as well, because you have 3 of those. So you have intro 1, intro 2, intro 3, and then ending 1, ending 2, ending 3. The further down the line you get, the more intricate that introduction tends to get, the longer that introduction tends to be as well. Because that's just how bands function. And one of the benefits to that is that usually, not always, but usually intro 2 is more of a signature introduction, meaning it reminds you of a song. Intro 1 is very basic. Intro 3 is much more ornate, but it's not necessarily song specific. But it's great to have those options, because if all you had was a very song specific introduction, now it's great if you're going to play that song, but if you're not, you know, the intro is not going to sound right with anything other than that song. Well, you can transition over to one of the others, which is nice. How are we doing on time? We got 7 minutes. We got time for a couple more. Pat, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
The Odyssey,
Yes.
does it have a finger snap?
It does not,
It does not.
but Bill can do it.
You're right.
Yeah. You know, one thing that I have had, I've had students ask me about a variety of things of sound effects like that. You can do nothing. You can rest I mean, there are 1 beat rests underneath those finger snaps for the Adams families. You can do nothing if you want. You can, for people that have the inclination to do it, I tell them use your left hand if you're going to do it at all, because the right hand is doing a lot more than your left is. So you can, and then bring your left hand back down. You can give it a if you want, something like that. But no, the Odyssey does not have that option.
Doesn't it have some kind of a drum set though? Would you could put the drums on the keyboard, lower keyboard?
No.
I
I was
thought the
thinking
Odyssey
of
had
something
that.
in the vibes.
Has
Mm-mm.
drums. It doesn't do that because I know one
No.
has drums. You can play.
No, that's there are they do
Premier.
make instruments that do that. The Premier does do that. Generally, I think it was every model size had certain capabilities, and that was kind of held even through the various lines over the years. And usually, if you could create a sound effect to that degree, it was coupled with external saving. So it had to have a floppy disk, which the Premiere had, or it had to have a thumb drive, which is what this has, or the Holiday Classic has. This does not give you that option. There's no internal hard drive.
No,
I mean, there's no.
drum
I'm
kit
sorry,
on
there's
that
no
one.
external.
There's a drum
Okay.
kit on that one.
There is, but it's not to the extent of sound effects like what
There's
we're
one that hit the
what
side of the
we're
drum, just
mentioning
kinda
of.
Click, click. You could do.
Right, right,
Click,
right.
Click.
Right.
The other thing is
Yes.
Octave Harmony. Do I have that on?
Octave Harmony. No. So you have AOC and Duet, I believe. And I would probably try, as long as it sounds good to you, because what Octave Harmony is, if I were to compare Octave Harmony to either AOC or Duet, the one that it's more closely related to would be Duet, because it is adding another key.
Okay.
Okay. And which is exactly what Duet does. The difference is that Duet adds another key which is short of an octave away from the key that the Octave Harmony does, because it's called octave. If you're playing a C, it plays the C on the other side of it. Or if you play a D, it plays the D. Now, interestingly enough, what we're doing on the first page of this song,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of hard, the one that's written more traditionally with the bass clef,
Mm-hmm.
we're doing Octave Harmony.
Okay.
We're doing it ourselves, because we're playing the left and the right hand at the same time, playing the same notes, just an octave away from each other. So when we do this, so when I play those notes, that's exactly what's happening. I'm playing 2 notes an octave away. I'm just using both hands in order to do it. That's what Octave Harmony is.
Okay.
Okay, it's the low note and the high note played at the same time. Okay, but I'm using 2 hands to do it. Now, when I get to the point of needing to add the rhythm in, I can't use 2 hands and then play the rhythm. I'd be playing with my nose or with my knee or something like that. So that's why when we bring in the beat, that's exactly what that is. That's Octave Harmony. It's making it sound like I'm still playing the way that I did on the first page. But if you don't have that, I would switch to, I'd try Duet. If you think it sounds okay, that would be fine.
All right. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Little quick question on
Go
Octave
ahead.
Harmony. When you play the harmony, okay, because you're playing a C and you're getting a C up an octave.
I actually think you're getting a C down an octave.
Oh, it's down.
Yep.
All right. So okay. So how far can it go down? So if you can start getting over to the left, how far can it go down? Off what would be off the end of the keyboard?
It'll still go there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll go there. I mean, you're going to get to a point. I keep forgetting to repeat these questions, but Mark's question is regards to if you're using Octave Harmony, which plays an octave lower, and you get to the lowest note, what's going to happen? It will grab a note lower than that, but sometimes you get so low you didn't hear them. You know, but yeah, if I were to put my split all the way down or not have a split and go down, it will play that note further down. Yep.
2 quick ones.
Go ahead.
You can use any pedal to get the finger snap on
Yes.
the Yamaha.
Yes.
Oh, you didn't tell us that.
Yes, I happened to put it on the middle pedal. Last week I put the duet on the right pedal, but you can put it on any pedal.
Oh, okay, yeah, all right,
Yeah.
that's it. And now, one more question on this.
Mhm.
On the harmony section, lock, what does that do? Why do you use it, and what's it for?
It's a good question. So anything that says lock is a temporary memorize.
Say that again?
It's temporarily memorizing. For example, let's say that you were using Broadway, and you were using the style setup with Broadway, which meant that all of these numbers have on them sounds that Lowery chose. So you go to Broadway, you say, oh, I like what's on number 1 and 2 and 3. I like all of this stuff. But what you'll notice is that sometimes the harmony purple button is on, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes the upper one's on, sometimes it actually doesn't look like, oh, there's both are on. Now neither are on, now just the top one's on, now the top one's on again. This one doesn't have any. So, let's say I want the upper harmony to stay on the whole time. Every one of these numbers that I hit, that upper harmony will stay on. Now, could I have done that without the lock? I could have, but I would have memorized number 1, memorized number 2, memorized number 3. So this is a way of, as I said, temporarily memorizing. Anytime that you see something with lock, it means it's going to be there, available to you until you unlock it. But it doesn't have anything to do with memorizing. So it's kind of saving you from having to memorize, if you will.
Will that always be there, as long as the lock is on, or how do you turn it off?
Just turn it off.
Just turn it off.
Yeah, just turn it off, and then they will revert back to the way that they would have been normally. Yeah, but anything that says lock, it's that same. It's just like lock tempo. I mean, I know we do it with a 2-button push, but same idea. We lock the tempo in, so no matter what blue button we go to, it doesn't go to the speed that they expect it to go to. It goes to your speed.
When you home the machine, it clears all the locks.
Correct. Yeah. So if you turn it off, or if you turning it off or resetting it, hitting home, hitting whatever, will reset that. Yes. How are we doing on time here? 12:01. Okay, we made it. We made it. All right. So I am going to be doing this again the last Saturday of this month, but keep in mind that is the Saturday after Thanksgiving. Someone questioned me actually via email, not that not that I would have done it anyways, but I think they were wondering if every Buttons class was going to be pushed back a week, and I said, well, no, we're going to do another one in a couple weeks because I am doing that special on purchases in November, whereas you get a year of lessons with a purchase, and that's I'd imagine going to spurn some purchases this month. So I imagine the one at the end of the month, even though it's only 3 weeks from now, will probably be pretty well attended, maybe by newer students or people that have since upgraded in the next couple weeks. So we will be doing another one of these. I think the 30th, I think is probably that Saturday, I believe. And feel free to ask questions in between there, and we'll go from there. In between now and then, we can answer your questions, but then we'll be available online and here. All right. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week.
Yep.